Right now, there are over 100,000 commercial vessels on the open ocean. They are the arteries of our world, carrying 90% of everything you own. On a public tracking map, it looks like a perfectly organized machine. But if you look closer at the edges, near the coast of Greece, the South China Sea, or the dark waters of the Arctic, something impossible is happening. Giant tankers, the size of skyscrapers, are simply vanishing. They aren't sinking. They haven't been hijacked. They've just turned off their eyes. This is the Dark Fleet, a secret navy of over 3,000 vessels operating completely outside the law. In just 3 years, this fleet has grown by 3,000%, and today it accounts for nearly 18% of the entire global tanker capacity. It is a trillion-dollar ghost economy moving millions of barrels of oil every single day through the shadows. To understand how a 300,000-ton ship disappears, you have to understand the AIS, the Automatic Identification System. It was designed for safety. Every ship broadcasts its position, speed, and name so they don't crash into each other in the dark. But the AIS has a weakness, a simple off switch. When a ship enters a dark zone, the captain flips that switch. On the global map, the ship stops moving. To the world, it is a ghost. But going dark is only the beginning. Recently, the tactics have evolved into something far more sophisticated. GNSS Spoofing, Global Navigation Satellite System Spoofing. Instead of turning the signal off, these ships now broadcast a false location. In late 2024, a tanker named the Skipper was boarded by U.S. Special Forces off the coast of Venezuela. On every digital tracking screen in the world, the Skipper appeared to be 500 miles away, peacefully sailing off the coast of Guyana. In reality, it was sitting at a sanctioned terminal, loading millions of dollars in forbidden crude oil. The ships are not just hiding, they are lying. And they are doing it with the help of a global web of shell companies, often registered in places like Dubai or the Cook Islands, where the real owners can never be found. When one ship is caught, the company vanishes overnight, and the vessel appears a week later with a new name, a new flag, and a new identity. They call it flag hopping. A ship can go from being Panamanian on Monday to Mongolian by Friday, all to stay one step ahead of the seizure. The reason the Shadow Fleet is so difficult to stop is that it isn't just a few rogue ships. It is a parallel infrastructure. To bypass the G7 oil price caps, which were lowered again in early 2026 to just $44.10 per barrel, Russia and its partners have built a ghost logistics chain that mimics a legitimate global industry. By January 2026, the Shadow Fleet had expanded to nearly 1,400 vessels. This represents roughly 18.5% of the entire global tanker capacity. But these are not new high-tech ships. They are zombie tankers. The average age of a legitimate oil tanker is 13 years. The average age of a Shadow Fleet vessel is over 20 years. Some are approaching 25. These are ships that should have been sold for scrap metal years ago. Instead, they are being bought at massive premiums by shell companies in Dubai, Hong Kong, and the Seychelles. Because these ships are old and poorly maintained, the world's major insurance companies, mostly based in the West, refuse to touch them. To solve this, the Shadow Fleet uses fake insurance. In 2025, investigators uncovered a massive scandal involving a company called Roe Marine. They were providing fraudulent insurance certificates to hundreds of tankers. When NATO countries inspected the paperwork, it looked real. But if one of these ships were to have a major accident, the insurance would be worthless. There would be no money for the cleanup, no one to hold accountable. The most dangerous moment in this entire ghost economy happens in the gray zones. One of the most famous is the Laconian Gulf, just off the coast of Greece. Two 300-meter tankers pull alongside each other in the open ocean. They connect massive hoses, and begin pumping millions of gallons of crude oil from one ship to another, while both are moving with the waves. In the professional shipping world, this is a high-risk operation that requires specialized equipment and expert crews. In the shadow fleet, it is done by ghost crews with no oversight, often in total darkness to avoid satellite detection. This is a ticking ecological time bomb. If one hose breaks, or if these two aging giants collide, the resulting oil spill would be catastrophic. In December 2025, Swedish and Finnish authorities grew so concerned about these tankers transiting the narrow Danish straits that they began pushing for a total ban. They aren't just worried about the oil, they are worried about the ships themselves. Some of these ghost ships have been caught carrying sophisticated spy gear and have even been suspected of dragging anchors to intentionally sever undersea internet cables in the Baltic Sea. This is no longer just about oil. It is about the complete breakdown of the rules of the sea. While the West attempts to tighten the chokehold, the Shadow Fleet has found its most loyal partners in the East. This is no longer a secret operation. It is a state-sponsored industry. In 2025, China and India together purchased over 80% of Russia's seaborne crude. But the oil that arrives at these ports is rarely labeled Russian. The process is called oil laundering. It begins in places like the Malaysian port of Tanjung Bruas. Here, tankers from the Shadow Fleet offload their cargo into massive storage tanks. This oil is then mixed with legal crude from other regions, rebranded with new paperwork, and sold to refineries as Malaysian blend. By the time it reaches the global market, the digital paper trail is so complex that even the most sophisticated tracking software cannot prove its origin. In India, the strategy is even more direct. Private refineries have become the primary processing hubs for the dark fleet. They buy the sanctioned crude at a massive discount, sometimes as much as $15 below the global Brent price, refine it into diesel and jet fuel, and then export that finished product back to Europe and the United States. It is a masterpiece of economic irony. Western nations are banning Russian crude while simultaneously filling their planes and trucks with fuel made from that very same oil. As of January 2026, it is estimated that this refinery loophole has funneled over $40 billion back into the Russian war chest, effectively neutralizing the impact of the G7 price caps. But the money isn't just staying in the oil trade. The profits are being used to expand the fleet into new territories. In late 2025, the first Ghost LNG tankers were spotted. Russia is now using the same shadow tactics to move liquefied natural gas, ensuring that even if every pipeline to Europe is cut, the energy and the cash will continue to flow through the dark. We are now entering a dangerous new era of maritime history. For the last century, the oceans were governed by a strict set of rules. Ships had to be insured, they had to be registered, and they had to be identifiable. The Shadow Fleet has proven that these rules are optional if you have enough shell companies and a desperate enough buyer. The year 2026 is the tipping point. In the first 2 weeks of January, the United States escalated its response from legal sanctions to what maritime experts are calling a soft blockade. U.S. and U.K. naval forces have begun intercepting and boarding tankers in the North Atlantic that lack valid insurance. In the Baltic Sea, Germany has taken the unprecedented step of barring zombie tankers from its territorial waters entirely, citing the immediate risk of an environmental disaster. The world is now split into two oceans. One is the clean fleet, modern, insured, and transparent. The other is the dark fleet, aging, anonymous, and lawless. This divide is distorting the global economy. Because the Shadow Fleet operates without the costs of insurance, taxes, or safety regulations, they can move oil cheaper than any legitimate company. This is putting honest shipping firms out of business, forcing more and more owners to sell their vessels into the shadows just to survive. The danger is no longer just about who is winning a war or who is making a profit. It is about the safety of the planet's oceans. Every day that a 25-year-old uninsured tanker sails through a storm in the North Sea, we are playing a game of Russian roulette with the environment. One engine failure, one broken hose, or one collision in a dark zone could trigger an oil spill that would dwarf the Exxon Valdez. The ghosts are no longer just on our maps. They are in our supply chains, our fuel tanks, and our environment. The Shadow Fleet has shown us that in the 21st century, you don't need a navy to control the seas. You just need to know how to disappear. If this investigation into the world's hidden navies was eye-opening, you can find our other deep dives into the invisible systems that dictate global power on our channel page. The oceans have always been the final frontier of lawlessness, and as the Shadow Fleet proves, the battle for control is only just beginning. You can support this channel's independent research by subscribing. It is your support that allows us to track the ghosts that the rest of the world chooses to ignore. The point is, the sea is much darker than the maps suggest. Thanks for watching.